This is Robert Harper with Virginia Farm Bureau's Grain Division. Thankful today, glad to bring you the Merchandiser Minute. What a privilege it is to speak to you all week and speak to you through this recording. It's Friday, February the 17th, 2023. Let's take a look at how the futures closed out the trade this week in Chicago. We've got March corn traded all week down 3 cents at $6.77. December corn traded all week. Your new crop contract down a penny for the week to close at $5.95. Some really good values here, especially for you that are thinking about forward contracting. Some of your new crop production off of that December contract, as well as just a strong nearby futures price here. Interesting thing this week, one analyst pointed out to me that both May and March corn futures contracts posted a triple top this week. If you take a look at that chart, you'll see that resistance now 3 times over the last month of trading at $6.85. So that'll help us make some decisions about old crop, and if we're setting any wish orders on basis contracts, we know where that resistance is at $6.85. Soybeans, the nearby contract March down 15 cents for the week to close at $15.27. Your new crop bean contract November up 8 cents for the week. So again, just lots of action this week in the spreads, and we see that bear spread working where we've got the nearby futures month going down and then deferred month, the new crop month coming up. November beans up 8 cents for the week to close at $13.86. And one of y'all reminded me this week that there really haven't been many times, maybe one other time back in 2012, that at this time on the calendar year you've got $13.86 on the futures board for your new crop beans. We had a good discussion and knowing we need every penny with input costs as high as they are, but just great opportunities here for locking in new crop beans, as well as selling what you have left, pricing some of what you have left of your old crop here above $15. The wheat board down 21 cents for the week in Chicago. Your nearby March contract to close at $7.65. New crop July wheat down 18 cents for the week to close at $7.81. There's been a little bit of activity this week. We did see the July contract hit $8. Got a few of y'all interested, and we've seen some movement in new crop wheat basis. Please give Josie or I a call about that. We want to talk to you about it. We'll go down through just some of the headlines that you've seen this week, just to summarize it as we're thinking about influences and making decisions going forward. When we take a look at the export inspections this week, corn, we got 20 million bushels loaded out. That was very much below expectation, poor, if you will, use that word. Beans, opposite, very strong, 57 million bushels, right where we wanted to be, if not a little bit above. The folks that watch that like a hawk every week. Wheat came in as expected on what got loaded out on vessels and rail cars for the week at 17 million bushels. The flip side of that, what did we sell? Thursday's export sales report. Mexico, number one corn customer for the week, came in as expected at 40 million bushel. China came in as a number one customer on soybeans at 18 million bushels, and we are definitely starting that seasonal slide now. Post-Valentine's Day, we know most vessels really from now until August are going to go down to Brazil to get the beans that they need. As we've talked about many times, we know that we're in really week 4 of a lot of rain in the northern states in Brazil. Harvest is slowed. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute, but beans, 18 million bushels sold this week. Top customer, China. In this week's export report yesterday morning, again, 7 million bushels of wheat sold. Taiwan was our number one customer. That came in as expected. And back to that corn number of 40 million bushels, we know the rhetoric, the story. We're ahead of where we need to be to meet USDA's export projections on beans. We're behind where we need to be on corn. USDA has the expected number of exports right now for corn in this marketing year, 1.925 billion. So we got to pick up that pace. Light trade volume all week on the grains and on the oilseeds. Really, again, the activity, the volatility on the oilseed side is in those spreads from the meal to the oil to the beans. We're going to watch that going forward next week. But again, light trade this week, and that is a headline, and we're getting not used to that, but we're getting to expect it as the markets and the computers that read the market influences are looking for a story. Ethanol production this week, up 1.4%, kind of keeping us right at that 1 million barrels per day. Stocks even for the week at 25 million barrels. We got a new NOPA, National Oilseed Processors Association crush number for January, 179 million bushels crushed to make oil and to make meal out of this week in the U.S. That was about 2 million under the expectation. I said this week, I meant the month of January. That's 179 million bushels of beans crushed in the U.S. in the month of January. That was about 2 million bushels under the industry expectation. Last year, 2022, in January, the people that work hard in that business crushed 182 million bushels of beans. We saw some neat things this week, always out of China. We know that China does allow for the importation of GMO corn and GMO beans, but they don't allow the use of those products for their farmers there in their country domestically. It's interesting, long story. Some of y'all know a lot more about that than I do. You can read about it. But we did get words this week that about 1% of their corn crop they're going to plant to GMO technology this year. That's a big deal. It's a very interesting story. We're going to watch that. We're going to read about that. Remember, China is the number 2 corn producer in the world behind the United States. They don't sell any. They use it all. Very interesting. We also know that into next week, the negotiations are going to start again on the UN brokered peace deal in the Black Sea. We know we've had it extended once, if not twice. I can't remember. It's been extended at least once, where Russia's allowing, in their words, sunflower oil, barley, wheat, and corn to be exported out of Ukraine. The deal that's currently in place is going to go through into March, but we know Russia said even as late as last Friday and on Monday of this week, they're not happy with it. So keep your eye on that. We got a new inflation number, consumer price index from the government this week for January, 6.4%, moderated a little bit. And you all know inflation is still rolling, reeling. It's making your decisions. And think about that and how it is impacting. I know you are, because y'all are in business, you're doing this. How it's impacting your business through managing your interest rates on those operating loans or whatever loans that you have. That's a big deal this year. I've met with a few of y'all this week, and I know management of interest rates is something you're working very closely with on those really good relationships you have with your lenders. In Brazil, we've seen some interesting things. We know the harvest is behind coming into the week on Monday. 17% of the beans there harvested last year. They were a little bit ahead last year, but they were 30% harvested last year. I think the 5-year average would be somewhere around 25%. So they're behind. And we've seen basis fall to negative levels in Brazil for soybeans. We've seen cash prices fall as well, with those basis levels falling as they know they're harvesting their biggest crop in history. And we've got some word this week out of some governmental and industry groups in Brazil talking about farmers storing a lot of beans, just like we do here when the prices are going the other way than they want them to. And they've talked about this week in many articles, maybe you all seen some, about storage issues in Brazil. Everything is full. So U.S.'s top trade negotiator for agriculture, Doug McCaleb, is pushing China to continue the Phase 1 trade deal. We ain't talked about the Phase 1 deal in a long time. He's also saying the U.S. is looking to expand our ag export partners. But one thing that we got to remember this week was really cool that we saw from the U.S. Census Bureau last year, 2022, China did buy $40 billion of agricultural imports from the U.S. That was the initial target more than 3 years ago in the Phase 1 deal. And with rising prices, they met that target last year. So that's remarkable, $40 billion. And so our top trade negotiator for ag, Doug McCaleb, is working hard to get that to continue with China. Weather, Argentina still dry. Today's forecast that we see dry through next Wednesday. They've had some cooler temperatures. Brazil, more disruption in farming activities due to lots of rain in those northern states, Paraná and Mato Grosso. We're going to watch that. There is rain all weekend. In the U.S. HRW country, Colorado, Texas, they got some snow. 4 to 11 inches I saw in one of our subscription weather reports. So that's good for that wheat country. We're not going to get a commitment of traders report again today. We know there was a cyber incident around some of the data that the Commodity Futures and Trading Commission uses to produce that report, but they say y'all are going to get one next Friday, the 24th. We're going to watch that. And again, big news this week that Mexico has now opened the door for U.S. GMO corn. They say they're only going to limit they only want non-GMO corn for human consumption, but all the cattle and everything else they feed down there, we know, we're thankful. A lot of people worked hard on that, but they're going to be able to keep taking U.S. GMO corn. Next week, remember, we're setting the crop insurance price here in the month of February for your corn and beans. Remember to meet. You got to meet with your crop agent. Y'all know that by March 15th. Make those phone calls if you haven't yet. We've got March options expiring next Friday in this sideways coal type trade that we've been in on corn and beans for many weeks. Maybe that'll bring some volatility. Watch the weather next week. Y'all, there's so much opportunity. Josie and I just see opportunity right now to lock in some prices, old and new crop. Give us a call if we can help you. It's a privilege to work for you. This is Robert at Virginia Farm Bureau's Grain Division.